Hello guys, welcome back to another video in the React.js beginner tutorial series, and in this video we are going to discuss about what is virtual DOM. We haven't discussed anything about virtual DOM, but we have heard the same topic in many different places saying that the performance of virtual DOM is quite good compared with other related things. So let's get started and see what are the agenda of this video. So first we'll be discussing about, we must have to know what is DOM. Then we will be discussing about the virtual DOM, and then we will see how virtual DOM works and then the differences. And we are having a diffing algorithm. I will be explaining what it is. Okay, that's it. So let's get started with introduction to DOM. DOM stands for Document Object Model. So document represent that the HTML document in an object manner. That's what it is. Document Object Model. We are representing HTML document in the object basis so that we can able to access. Who will access? JavaScript can access the HTML element. Okay, that's what DOM is. When you consider a DOM, it's like a tree-like structure so that you can access every element as a parent-child things. So that's what the tree is all about. Whenever you are doing modification in the DOM, then the entire DOM supposed to be get repainted on the browser screen. If you are not aware of what the DOM is, how the browser works, here is a quick intro about that. DOM, as I said, is nothing but Document Object Model representing HTML document in the form of objects so that it can be accessed with the help of JavaScript. DOM is a tree-like structure. Whatever the code that is available in the DOM, that only get rendered in the browser screen. If I wanted to do any modification in the DOM, then the browser supposed to repaint the entire page again. So that's what the usual flow of DOM is. Who will modify the DOM? JavaScript has the ability to do so. But the problem here is, whenever you are doing any change, it's supposed to repaint it. If you do 1000 changes, then the 1000 time repaint is supposed to happen. That's what the problem with the DOM manipulation is. And that process is actually very slow. Next thing is, that's what I'm saying, the direct manipulation is inefficient. Dynamic apps like FB, Instagram. Why I specifically said FB and Instagram? Because the content are so dynamic. So every time we are getting a new content. If you do any such kind of data driven application and you have a lot of data intense application that usually changes the data then and there in the UI, in that case React is the best UI that you could build for. Okay, that's how it is. Next thing is, what is virtual DOM? We know what is DOM, but what actually the virtual DOM is? Virtual DOM is nothing but just the copy of real DOM. That's it. Okay, just the copy of real DOM. That's a JavaScript object. That's all, nothing apart from that. Now we need to understand how this virtual DOM is created when it is created. I said virtual DOM is nothing but the real DOM's copy. Next thing is, when does that copy creates? When the initial render happens. We know that the render is happen once after the DOM tree build. So at the time the render starts, the build tree is actually built. The DOM tree is actually built. So once that process is completed, virtual DOM is created by taking the copy of actual DOM. Hope this is clear till now. Now we know what DOM is, what virtual DOM is. Now we need to understand how does that virtual DOM works. So virtual DOM gets created at the time the initial render of the component happens or the DOM happens. Whenever there is a change in the DOM or else in the states or props, of course we didn't understand what is states and props, don't worry, that's just the concept in React. Whenever there is a change in states or props, then the component state get changed. Once it gets changed, obviously the DOM supposed to get updated. That time the DOM supposed to get rendered on the browser screen. We are doing changes in the virtual DOM. React never do any changes in the actual DOM unless the changes are done. So even if it is 1000 change that happens, all those 1000 changes are happening in the virtual DOM. Once all the changes are applied on the virtual DOM, Now React compares virtual DOM with the actual DOM. That comparison actually takes place with the help of diffing algorithm. So what this algorithm does, this algorithm compares each DOM line by line and take the changes, inject all the changes into the actual DOM in a single shot, which is nothing but batch update. Once that batch update is done, then the re-render happens, and this batch update happening on the actual DOM, which is nothing but your real DOM. Hope this is clear. Let me again explain how virtual DOM works. Virtual DOM gets created at the time the initial render of the application happens. I mean, once the actual DOM is created for the initial render, that takes the copy. Now the virtual DOM is created. Whenever there is a change happen in the component state, then the DOM is supposed to get modified. So if that happens, the changes are happening on the virtual DOM. Nothing actually happening in the actual DOM. Once the changes are applied on the virtual DOM, React compares actual DOM with the virtual DOM. Whatever the changes that is happened on the virtual DOM, that actually applied as a single change as a batch update to the actual DOM. Of course, once the actual DOM is modified, then it's supposed to go through the re-rendering process. So instead of doing 1000 re-render, now I'm doing 1 re-render. That's virtual DOM advantages, and that's how the performance of the application increased. Next thing is, what is diffing algorithm? Why we need diffing algorithm? React uses diffing algorithm to compare actual DOM with virtual DOM. So how does this diffing algorithm works? We compare tree in hierarchical wise. You can think that in the line by line ways. So once that is happens, so if I have 1000 lines or 1000 branches in the tree, then the entire process takes approximately big of n times. So that's what I mentioned it here. Once that comparison is happened, then the changes are applied to the actual DOM as a batch update, and then the re-render happening on the browser side, then the screen get reflects. And that's what diffing algorithm is, and that's how diffing algorithm. So what the advantages? Here we'll be discussing little more on the advantages. First and foremost, minimize real DOM update. As of course, we are minimizing the real DOM update so that the performance will be better. Batch update happening on the actual DOM. Because of that, I am actually avoiding number of re-render happens. We don't have to do any manual optimization for this kind of rendering process. That will be automatically taken care by the React itself. Virtual DOM takes care of it. We don't have to do anything. The same virtual DOM concept is followed in the React Native framework. That's the JavaScript framework for developing mobile-based application. It is lighter. Virtual DOM is lighter. Whenever we are having a virtual DOM, that's quite lighter compared to the actual DOM. We do all the changes on the virtual DOM, then we apply the changes as a batch update to the actual DOM. All those things are nothing but the advantages of virtual DOM. Let me give a quick summary of what we discussed in this video. We started with what is virtual DOM. It's nothing but copy of actual DOM. When virtual DOM creates, when initial render happens, the actual DOM copy is created. That copy of the actual DOM is nothing but virtual DOM. React does all the changes. React do all the changes on the virtual DOM. Once the changes are applied on the virtual DOM, with the help of diffing algorithm, React compares virtual DOM with the actual DOM and do batch update of changes from virtual DOM to the actual DOM. Because of this functionality, number of re-renders reduced. Because of that, React able to provide a better performance compared with other things. If you can understand how virtual DOM works in the React, then the same is applicable to the React Native. That's a mobile app development framework using JavaScript. And that's also we have React virtual DOM concept. And the same is applicable to that as well. I hope this is clear, and we have covered almost all the topics with the basics that we need to proceed further with the application development. So from the next video onwards, we will be starting with the coding exercises. So how to create component, how to do the changes, how props, states, and everything we'll be discussing. Okay. So I'm super excited to start with the actual development part. So let's meet in the next video. Till then, bye. Take care. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you don't never miss any update whenever we release a new video. Stay tuned guys. We'll meet in the next video. Till then, bye. Take care.